It's like this is just another tool we've got.
Welcome to CTOs, where tech meets the world, where CTOs share the tales and the comments. From startups to big names, innovations unfold. How many CTOs will share their stories untold?
Hi, Brad. Welcome back. Good to see you for another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take?
Good to see you, Scott.
Yeah, and today is just another check-in on AI.
Checking in on
I
AI.
saw something on LinkedIn the other day. I wanted to
Yeah.
kick the conversation on with, kick off the conversation. Kent Beck.
Yeah.
Do you know that name?
Yeah.
For any of our listeners who don't know Kent Beck, they should probably go look that guy up. He's a pretty big deal. Well, I don't know if he's a big deal, but he's influential. He's influenced all of our lives in this business. So I follow Kent Beck on Instagram. No, incorrect, on LinkedIn. And although Kent Beck's Instagram feed would probably be pretty funny, but that's not where I follow him. I follow him on LinkedIn. And he posted this the other day. Vibe coding is only ever as good as the genie. Augmented coding is as good as the augmented programmer, and that programmer can get very, very good.
Yeah.
And I really liked that take. I was like, that aligns with how I've been thinking about AI recently.
Yeah.
So where are you at on it?
Okay. Well, first of all, that comment totally resonates with me. I agree with that, especially for like the state of play today.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am an augmented programmer. Every programmer on my team is an augmented programmer. And I believe that the programmers who are embracing it more wholeheartedly um, are improving their skills more rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that were already good developers that are using augmented programming or AI assisted programming, whatever, that's what I'm interpreting augmented programmer to be. The
Mm-hmm.
ones that were already good developers, man, they are just rocket ships. They are getting so much more productivity, and they already were good, and now they're getting more. Vibe coding, I haven't really done that much vibe coding. I do throw problems at the AI in a vibe code like way. They, depending on the size of the problem, it either does fine or I just throw it away because it just doesn't work. I think that's right. Like vibe coding is only as good as the genie, as whatever the little agent does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think so. This is a lead into a hot take
Yeah.
I have about AI,
All right.
potentially controversial. And it's a two-parter. It's my current thinking, subject to change. This is a strong belief, loosely held.
Yeah, I love it.
AI is uninteresting and bad,
Mhm.
but the genie is out of the bottle and we can't put it back, so we have to deal with it.
All right. Say more.
Well, you touched on it a minute ago when you said these engineers who are talented are becoming more talented, more productive. And I would say 999 out of 1,000 things I hear about with AI are just making people more productive to make things, which ultimately just makes more money for, some capitalist. And I'm not sure what good that does for the world. Now, a friend of mine said, well, what good does for the world is in theory, it should bring prices down. And when prices come down, people buy more stuff. Or can afford more stuff and can have a better quality of life. So in theory, it should be good for the world. But the other side of that coin, of course, is there is a massive climate impact on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I also have started to develop some worries about like military applications of these things, which is a little bit scary to start to think about. And so like when I sort of step back, I'm kind of asking myself, like, so let's just fast forward like 25 years when it's all kind of matured a lot. Like, will humanity be in a better spot than we're in now, or will we be in a worse spot? And I kind of think I think at best case we'll be in the same spot and we might be in a worse spot. Now, I did say, one out of 1,000 things has been good. And I haven't done a lot of research. And in fact, anybody who's listening to this, I would love, if you find me on LinkedIn and send me links to other things that are like this. I did read one article where they were able to use some of these technologies. I think it was more of a machine learning thing than a generative AI, but to detect breast cancer 5 years earlier in people. And I thought to myself, well, that is good.
Yeah.
Like that's making humanity better off
Yeah.
than we are now. But making it so that like someone can make, yet another social music recommendation engine a little bit faster. Um, I don't know how great that is, especially given the climate impacts. And I also wonder if we ever in this world actually decide to price climate into things, actually put a carbon tax on stuff.
There was an article that one of our listeners shared with me after one of the podcasts that we talked about with AI, where we were talking about the climate impact of it. I'll make sure to find it and link it in the show notes.
Hmm.
But it was a pretty detailed analysis, and it kind of came back with, well, you're not actually spending that much energy relative to, you know, things you do every day anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
like turn on your lights. You basically make way, way, way bigger impact on the climate by not flying. You know,
Well, flying's the worst.
flying is the worst. So, but even just like, you know, driving your car a couple blocks versus this. So, but that being said, I don't want to dismiss that concern because I do think that's a valid concern. Um,
Can I ask you
I
a quick
will,
question, real quick?
yeah, sure.
Did you read Bill Gates' book, The Climate Breakthrough: How to Avoid a Climate Catastrophe or
I haven't,
Breakthrough?
I have not.
It's fascinating. I really enjoyed it. It's short. It's like 125 pages. I'm sure you could find a PDF of it online because he was trying to get it out to everybody. And it was a very nuts and bolts. Like imagine a pie chart of the entire economy, different sectors, agriculture, construction, things like that, healthcare, and like how much carbon each of those produced.
Hmm.
And then he broke down each slice of the pie chart, like what were the problems in that space, and where did we have solutions and where did we not have solutions
Hmm.
as a society, and where did we have solutions that were cost affordable, where did we have solutions that were not cost affordable, and where did we not have solutions. And it was just a very nuts and bolts like understanding of to get an understanding of like where is um I made the comment a minute ago like air travel is the worst. This gave me a very good basic understanding of like, well, where are the real opportunities and costs. And like something that stuck in my mind was, cement's very carbon, produces a lot of carbon. We don't have a solution. Nobody's got an alternative to
Yeah, I
cement,
think I'd seen
right?
that before.
And
Yeah.
so it's a quick read to just kind of like get a baseline of like
I will check it
some
out.
facts. Anyway, you were going on somewhere.
Well, I was going to say that okay, so here's my here's my current take on this. I'm less worried about the climate impact, but I will I want to I'm not discounting that. I am a little bit first of all, I'm cynical of the it's going to replace all developers in 6 months. It's going to replace all developers in, you know, a year. Because of what I just talked about and what we started this episode with, this
Hmm.
notion that you have to already be skilled to really be useful with it, and that the other stuff really kind of, if anything, like all the vibe coding is probably creating more developer jobs because they're going to have to come back and fix all that garbage, you know? So I'm a little bit less worried about sort of the really, really short-term impact of this. But watching how quickly this is moving and someone who uses it regularly, um, I do think there comes a point in the not too distant future where enterprises that have software developers working for them, and I'm going to extend this to other white collar jobs, but enterprises that have software developers working for them are going to be hiring people like you and I as CTOs to say, hey, my competitor used to have 100 engineers and now they only have five and they're outpacing us.
Hmm.
Help me help me cut my costs that way.
Hmm.
And absolutely in the next I have no doubt that in the next 5 years, it, a team of 5 engineers will outperform a team of 100 engineers from today. I'm certain of that based on what I'm seeing this trajectory.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't mean that no engineers are working and the AI is doing all of it, but I think that there's a very serious reckoning coming for like you and this is basically similar to what you just said, which is like it just makes us more productive, right? Well, what happens when capitalism makes things more productive, when you get more out of an individual worker than you previously got out of 10 individual workers, is you eliminate 9 of those workers.
Yeah, or you can produce more for the same costs. Like if I can produce, if I'm just thinking, maybe this only applies to like a manufacturing, not a creative thing like software engineering, but if I have a factory and I can produce 100 widgets with 100 workers, and I 10x their productivity, and now I can make 1,000 widgets with 100 workers.
Yeah.
My options are I could get rid of 90% of the workers and make the same amount. But if there's the demand for my product, I can I can sell
Well,
more, and I can bring the price down to sell more.
yeah, I think though that I guess this is no, this is my you know, on the similar like dark turn that you're taking about like, hey, we're not necessarily making anything better. I'm just putting on my capitalist hat here, and
Yeah.
I think that um, like I don't think that the limiting factor is the number of people writing code, right? Like most
Hmm.
enterprises, that's not the limiting factor. If
Hmm.
anything, the limiting factor tends to be ideas, right? Like
Mm.
good ideas, right? And so maybe if you really did have an enterprise that is sitting there saying, "Oh, it turns out like we have a lot of really great ideas and we're just unable to move as fast as we can to build them." Sure, for those enterprises, the it's going to be it's going to be a boon for them. But
Yeah, if you're a capital constrained enterprise, so it's actually a boon for them.
well,
Yeah,
and
it's interesting.
this by the way is why I was so excited when we chatted with Justin Kaufman and when we
Hmm.
chatted with Justin Wolf and Joe Malik. Those are two examples of something that I think for the next 5 years is a really good example where if you are just two guys in a garage or one guy in a garage and you have this idea, something you want to implement, that's a perfect example of a kind of a capital constrained
Hmm.
software development exercise. And
Hmm.
there's no doubt in my mind that if you've got an idea, you've got a smart engineer that knows how to build something, and you've got the right ideas, then boom, augmented generative AI, strong engineer, all of a sudden makes things so much easier to implement. So that I'm excited about.
Hmm.
But I mean, you and I've been doing this engineering leadership thing, CTO,
Long
VP,
time.
engineering manager for, 20 plus years each, 25 years plus each. And, like it's a bell curve about the talent of your engineers.
Hmm.
And that that hump of that bell curve, that's 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 where the productivity is being, candidly, that's where productivity is wasted.
What do you mean wasted? That isn't what I thought you were going to say. So now I'm curious.
That's the product. That's the team members that are going to be easily replaced by a 10x
Mm.
engineer. If you're a 10x engineer already, and now you're getting augmented by AI, you become a 100x engineer.
Hmm.
And it doesn't make sense for an enterprise to employ the other 90 engineers.
Yeah, the thought that came to my mind when you were talking about that bell curve is for wherever you are on the curve right now, at this moment in time, and probably for the next few years, at least the next two, maybe more. So wherever you are on the curve right now, you have an opportunity to move yourself up the curve,
Well, the curve's
right?
just moving.
Overall, the curve might be moving, but you have a chance to get ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
right? And, if you were NX, you can get yourself to N plus something and be more valuable for a while, maybe advance your career or whatever. Um, and maybe the rest of the world catches up to you, or maybe you what is it,
Breakaway.
reach escape velocity, right?
Yeah, reach escape
Um,
velocity, right? For
but there's
sure,
a
100% we should be encouraging everybody to do this. I agree with that statement. Like,
yeah,
now's your chance to get better, for sure.
yeah, it's an opportunity, and yeah, and I think nobody quite knows like how much how much it's going to change the industry, but certainly I think if you're on the I'm going to say leading edge, but the getting more out of it edge than others, you're shifting yourself up the curve, which is good.
Yeah, so here's an example of kind of why I think this here's an example of like the last couple days I've been doing this experiment,
Hmm.
and I think it speaks to kind of like this story exactly, right? So, um, you know, longtime listeners of the pod will know that we have a very simple website for the How Many CTOs Pod .com, howmanyctospod.com. And we when we first launched this thing, we had this chance like, well, let's go just use some hosting service, and there's like plug and play things, and you just
Hmm.
whatever do your thing, and they'll make it all fancy and stuff. And you and I didn't really talk a lot about it, but I kind of resisted that idea and said I kind of want to do something. I want to like build a
Hmm.
little website for us. And a big reason behind that was because I wanted to keep my axe sharp, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
let me kind of use it as an experimenting ground that I can play around with the latest technology.
Hmm.
And you don't I'm sure you don't log into the website regularly, Scott, but just recently I was like, I'm just going to start throwing projects at, OpenAI Codex and just let it do it and see what it comes back with. Now, I won't merge it and deploy it unless it works,
Hmm.
but I've just started giving it tasks. And without with very little guidance on my part, just a paragraph at most or 2 sentence description of what I want, it's turning around and doing it.
Pretty cool.
Um, examples are things like here. Let me pull this up and just kind of read off some examples of stuff I've asked for it to do recently. So I asked it to create a Patreon call to action component and add it to the homepage.
Yeah.
Right? I asked it to create a listen on your favorite service call to action, and you can go look at the website now. It made this it just out of the box made this nice little clickable buttons that have like Apple Podcast logos and Patreon logos, and it just did it, you know. And I have my own personal website that is just kind of like a personal brand website, and I've been throwing tasks at that too. One of my pages on my personal website is about my mountaineering, and so it's like, how many mountains have I climbed on the Bulger list? And so I asked it, I go, hey, in real time, go over to this website, Peak Bagger, find me, and download all of my Bulger summits and print it in a cool little,
Hmm.
fancy looking HTML timeline thing. It's doing it.
So you're reminded me of something. It's like a tool. It's a new tool that you've got.
Yeah.
And I remember many years ago, I did a kitchen remodel in a house I lived. I did not do the kitchen remodel. Um,
You
I did
project
do the
managed it.
demo.
You
I did do the demo, which was super fun. And I did help. It was my friend who was he was a carpenter and he really did the work, and I helped out a little bit. But I wasn't. I'm not great at it. Let's be honest, I'm not great at it. And but the thing I do remember was that when he started, he kind of moved in. Like he didn't move into the house, but he moved into brought all his tools basically. And like our whole basement was filled with tools. He had a tool for everything.
Yeah.
You need to do one little thing. Oh, I've got a tool for that. You need to
Right.
do this. Oh, I got a specialized tool for that. And of course, carpentry has been thousands of years, right? Maybe not thousands, hundreds. I don't know how long carpentry's been around, but um, and so
Well,
it's like this is just like
supposedly what Joseph was a carpenter, right? So it's been at least
oh,
2,000
that's right.
years.
Yeah, yeah. Jesus was a carpenter. Yeah, that's right. Um, Well, this is a super big digression. I have this little talk that I give sometimes about why is your project behind schedule, and this is what I like to say. I say, look, depending on the research you read, dwellings, places where people live, are somewhere between 5,000 and 11,000
Right.
years old. In Europe, they found evidence of dwelling from 5,000 years ago. In Asia, they found evidence of dwelling from 11,000 years ago. We've been building houses for so long that there are generally accepted ways for how to build them, all sorts of standards and conventions and, you know, things like that. In fact, to the point where our governments have codified the proper way to build dwellings, and we have inspectors that come ensure that it's being done
Mm-hmm.
the right way. And the construction industry is notorious for being over budget and behind
Mm-hmm.
schedule. Now we've been building software for what, 75 years, maybe 100, 80, something like that. There's no
Yeah.
generally accepted ways for doing
Yeah.
anything. And when there is a generally accepted way for doing something, you know what we do? We encapsulate it into a library so we don't have to do it anymore. Every kitchen and bathroom that gets plumbed in the world, you got to plumb it over and over again. Every time you want to make a, I don't know, HTTP request, you just use your library that someone did and do it over and over again. And so I completely lost my train
Well,
of
I
thought.
think your
But
point is,
that, oh, we were talking about carpentry. We digressed on carpentry. We've been doing carpentry for a long, long time. Okay, so it's yes. What I was getting at is it's like this is just another tool we've
yeah.
got, and right now the tool is good at doing relatively kind of simple things in the grand scheme of things, and maybe the tool will get better and better at doing more and more complicated things. Maybe we'll see fragmentation. It won't be one giant LLM that can do all sorts of stuff, but like here's my LLM for doing stupid web tasks, and here's my LLM for making message queues, and here's my LLM for doing this
Yeah.
other specialized thing.
Well,
Because all these tools were specialized that my friend had.
yeah, that's fair. I think though that again, this is obviously like anecdotal on my part, but I've just watched the change, the rapid change, and how much better it has gotten month over month.
Yeah.
And um, I I mean, obviously, software is my expertise, right? That's what I've done my entire career,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a little bit maybe naive of me to attempt to extrapolate to other um, office jobs, but
Mm-hmm.
I think there are probably a lot of office jobs. And you remember when we talked to John Helm about it, he's like, look, a lot of getting by in the world is just pattern recognition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot of jobs that are essentially these kind of like mechanical pattern recognition. If you see this, then do that type jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
just like we saw in the robotics, not the industrial revolution, but like, the robotics revolution that happened in the last 50 years, um, like, yeah, sure, there's still auto manufacturing plants in the United States and in the world, but instead of having 100 human beings on the line, they have 5 human beings on the line and 100 robots.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the and so I think that same sort of like consolidation is destined to happen to these types of jobs. And I rank like software engineer is like one of the ripest targets because you know that's where the LLMs have been getting all the practice. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't see any reason why that same thing's not going to happen to accountants or I mean, I think there's going to be several jobs like lawyers and doctors and accountants that are essentially protected by, essentially like licensure and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of regulatory constraints.
Hmm.
But what does what does technology do when there's a regulatory constraint? It always goes around it, right?
Finds a way. So if you were giving advice to a young person, somebody who maybe recent high school or college graduate, um, coming into the beginning of their adult life, beginning of their career, with tremendous uncertainty about how the workplace is going to shape up, um, what advice would you give them?
Man, I don't know. Uh,
It's a tough one,
buckle
right?
up. I think that
Yeah.
like one of the I think that like there's this narrative that liberal arts education, right? People don't understand the word
Hmm.
liberal in that context. A lot of times they think it's like a political statement, but really it just
Hmm.
means the notion of like you know being fluid in your ability to take on new ideas and therefore explore new concepts. So I think that one of the biggest benefits of a liberal arts education is the ability to be adaptable and use critical thinking skills and problem solving skills to apply to a lot of different topics. That's the
Hmm.
essence in my mind. And I think that's going to be really important. I think
Hmm.
flexibility, the ability to be to adapt, the ability to try new tools, not be afraid of trying new tools, to try to apply your energy and your intellect and your problem solving and your critical thinking to any possible endeavor, I think is going to
Hmm.
be really important. That's one thing I would say.
I think that tools piece is valuable. Like whether it's learning how to use Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, just knowing how to use these that are and they're evolving too, but just having some level of technical skill. And today they do, right? I mean, kids do. They've been using these tools since elementary school or whatever. But
Yeah, so
that's
I would
valuable.
definitely say to people that if you're resistant to using generative AI, please try to get past that resistance because
Hmm.
it's going to be, it's just like we said this before, it's like a spell checker. Why would you not use a spell checker,
Yeah.
right?
So here's a question for you. You said earlier, I mean, it's moving so fast. It's like you blink and it's changed. Every week there's new models, there's new technologies. You can't even, I mean, I can't even keep. I've actually given up on trying to keep up.
Oh,
Um,
say
but
no to giving
so,
up.
well, it's too much. Like to stay current on what's really happening is really tough. It's a full-time job. So my question for you is, okay, I'm gonna set up this question with kind of a funny little quote. Bill Graham, who was a famous music promoter in the '60s and '70s, had a lot to do with bringing the Grateful Dead to fame. Actually, I don't think this is a Bill Graham quote. This may be a Jerry Garcia
Okay.
quote. He talked. Yeah, he said. Yeah, it was Jerry Garcia. He said, we only play one key, but we play the shit out of that key.
Yep.
Um, And so my question for you is, if you're talking to a young person, do you think it's better for them to sort of try to stay current on what's happening? Or is it better to like the Grateful Dead's like, hey, just find one tool
No,
that seems to work for you and just like get really good at
I
it?
think generalists are the key to the future. I think
Oh,
specialization
okay.
is a dangerous road. I think the more
Oh,
specialized you are, the more likely you are to be replaced by an algorithm. Like
interesting.
one of one of my buddies and I were out doing a ski tour a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this notion, and um, you know, the highest paid salaried job in the U.S. is anesthesiologist. Now, obviously, people make more money
Hmm.
doing other things like sales, and they have the
Hmm.
compensation that's not just like salary based, but like anesthesiologist, most highly paid job, hourly or salaried. Um, it's 100% a structured algorithm. Now
Hmm.
you've got somebody's life in your hands, and you've got to be paying attention to the specific details of this human being that's under your anesthetic control.
Hmm.
But I think that's a great example of a highly specialized job. Takes years of specialized training, and it is one thing. You're sitting there. You're not involved in anything else that's happening to the patient. You're just sitting there, paying attention to the real time readouts of that patient and
Mhm.
adjusting whatever you've given them. That is 100% replaceable by a single anesthesiologist monitoring, you know, hundreds of technicians using AI to just mostly call the shots.
Mhm. Let me come at the question just a little bit differently. I mean, like, I'm 23 or 27. It doesn't matter. My age doesn't matter. I could be 53. I'm in the workplace. Oh, this week OpenAI introduced their new thing. Oh, this week Gemini
Yeah.
introduced their new thing. Oh, this week Cursor has a new
I'm not
version.
I'm
Oh,
not
there's
paying
this new thing
attention to
called
that.
Windsurf.
I'm not paying attention to that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
I'm
like,
I'm at a much I'm more like, you know, every couple weeks I just look at what the current zeitgeist is, and then I pick and choose. And I'm not one of these
well,
fanboys that's like constantly just reading Hacker News to see the latest thing. I don't think there's a ton of, because it's churning too much right now. So I think
learning
you
too
have to
much.
avoid the churn. Like there's no value in that, but just got to be looking at the trend line.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if I'm an engineer, is it better to just say, look, I'm just going to use Cursor and figure out how to squeeze as much juice out of Cursor, or is it better for me to go, yeah, I've been using Cursor, I've been using Augment Code, I've been using Windsurf, I've been using Codex,
No,
whatever. I'm using sort of all of them. Or is it better to just like, hey, you know, I know Cursor and I know how to squeeze all the
I
juice
think
out of
it's
that thing.
way I would say it this way. This would be my advice. My advice would be up level what you're doing. Don't if you came to me, if you're the engineer that comes to me and where this is our one on one and we're kind of coaching here, I'd be like, hey, it's great that you're using Cursor, Windsurf, great. I go go try other ones just to make sure. But
Hmm.
what's really important, Scott, what I really want you to be doing right now is I want you to be paying really close attention to the way you prompt it and what its results look like. And I want you to be
Hmm.
focusing on, just like when I asked you to do a code review for Janet's PR that she just put up, and I talked to you about how you as an engineer pay attention to another person's code. That's what I want you to optimize right now. I want you to be treating this thing like another engineer, and I want you to focus on your skills about understanding complex software tasks, understanding what the current LLMs are good at, and evaluating when they do it correctly. That's what's going to make
Hmm.
you strongest. And what that's really about is that's not anything to do with Cursor or Windsurf or which model was being used. Like none of that matters because none of those things are going to exist 2 years from now, or none of them are going to exist in their current form 2 years from now. But what will exist is these AI assistants, AI agents, and they will evolve in their ability for you to instruct them. And I want you to go up a level. Don't think about you're in Cursor. I want you to think about you're collaborating with this agent. That's where I need to
Hmm.
get you.
That's great advice. This reminds me of something. I have to look up something really quickly. Are you familiar with the Cynefin framework?
No.
Okay, Cynefin, Cynefin framework. So, Cynefin framework is a conceptual tool for understanding and managing situations,
Complex
environments,
environments. Oh yeah.
and yeah, and it describes four kinds of environments. Uh, let's see
Oh
here.
yes.
Try and find
Simple, complicated.
complex and chaotic. Simple has a very direct relationship between cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Complicated, there's a relationship, but it requires some sort of exploration or understanding or a sense of expert knowledge. Complex, um, is the relationship can be only perceived in retrospect. You can't quite know it in advance. And chaotic is there's no relationship
Yep.
between these things, between cause and effect. And so, to some degree, what AI is doing, if simple is the most simple at the bottom and complex is at the top, it's sort of shifting us up a little bit, right? When you were typing your code, you're kind of somewhere in the simple complicated range. Like cause and effect is very clear. Oh, I forgot the semicolon and now it doesn't work, right? And it's by talking to the agent or the bot or whatever you want to call it, the AI, and having it give you an answer, and then having it's kind of moving us between complicated and complex, which is now you're having to evaluate your prompt. and the result that your prompt
Mm-hmm.
got, which is not cause and effect. Well, it is cause and effect, but we definitely have to like probe and sense and analyze that cause and effect more than we used to have to.
I had not heard of this framework with that name before, but I have recently been hearing about this notion of like simple, uh, complicated and complex systems, and I was listening to some podcast. I can't remember which podcast it was now that I think about it. But it was probably like I don't know what podcast it was, but there was some person on there, and they were basically saying that we humans, particularly scientists, particularly like policymakers, particularly like technologists, we convince ourselves that we can understand complex systems, but
Mm-hmm.
actually, we don't have any complex systems in the world yet. We have some very complicated systems, and we
Mm-hmm.
convince ourselves that those very complicated systems are complex systems. But
Yeah.
actually, they're just very complicated. And the moment that we actually are confronted with a complex system, we are not going to be able to reason about it. And this particular person
Mm-hmm.
was raising this in the context of AI, saying uh, true AGI will be a our first real complex system that we do not really understand and cannot understand. And we are
So you
kidding
think
ourselves when because a whole bunch of us think we already understand how to, there's some complex systems out there that we're figuring out. And he's like, no, 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 no. Those are merely complex systems.
so? Let me test that. That's I like that idea, but let me test it for a second. The weather,
Yeah.
is that complex or complicated, or just very complicated?
I think that it's a very complicated system. It's a very
Hmm.
complicated system, but we call it a complex system. That's a good example.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder if the distinction there is our ability to actually understand the relationships. We don't have it, therefore it seems complex to us, and but it's not actually complex. If we were smarter,
Yeah, like there was this,
had more
what was
science
it?
or
What was
whatever, I
the
don't
thing
know.
that happened? Like, God, we just saw this where it's like, the a bunch of uh, policy changes were made around the use of particular fuels for cross, transatlantic and trans-Pacific, uh, freighter systems, and those
Hmm.
went into place internationally, and we had a significant reduction in a particular greenhouse gas that was being emitted by these,
Hmm.
freighters, and it like materially like changed. Like, yes, like we are doing a better job, and guess what happened? Ocean temperatures have risen
Hmm.
because this greenhouse gas was also effectively reflecting back sunlight. So it was
Hmm.
both
Hmm.
trapping it down, but it was also reflecting it away. And so now we basically are actually like, and someone could have
So in the
definitely like said, hey, that's like an understandable cause and effect, but they just didn't run all the numbers. So it is just a very complicated system. But then they're like, oops, didn't think about that one. That was a complex interaction.
I think in the Cynefin framework, at least, that would be called complex
Yeah. Oh,
because you can't understand until after the action occurs what is going to happen. Anyway,
fair enough. I definitely feel like with the dawn of more and more powerful AI models, I think we're moving into the zone of truly complex.
right. Well, it's where I was getting at was just you're talking about hey, you're coaching an engineer saying pay attention to what the agent is doing or the AI is doing. It's like we're having to go from something which was very deterministic. I wrote this code, it does this thing, and sometimes it doesn't do what you think it does because I didn't quite understand what was happening. But in general, the code does what you wanted it to do. To now, like you tell the AI to write something, and it might not write at all what you expected because you didn't phrase it right. It's much less clear to us the inputs and outputs.
Yeah, and that does it does that kind of stuff to me all the time, which is why one of the reasons I like my experiment of like throwing random tasks at Codex and just like looking at its pull request and like, you know, closing it with severe prejudice when it gets it wrong. It's just like
Right.
wrong, kill. And I'm not talking about super complicated things I'm asking it to do, and it still fails to do it. So it's still got a long ways, but it's getting much better. And I think that the concern I have for all those software engineers in that middle of that bell curve is, do they know good code when they see it? Do they know correct code when they see it? That's the most important thing.
I mentioned this the other day. I might have said it on an episode we recorded last week or something. I was recently trying to use ChatGPT Codex to try it out, and I thought of a little idea for a mobile
Yeah.
app that I was like, this would be fun. Um, and I thought, well, I'll try and do this. I'll have the agent do it. And the first step, I said, can you make me the boilerplate for a React Native application? And I don't have a lot of experience with React Native. I've made some Hello World apps before, some fart like a duck kind of apps. And I think I should say quack like a duck, not fart like a duck, but whatever. I've made some little apps before, but I've never. So anyway, it spit out. It said, okay, we did it for you. It spit out a pull request with 60 files.
Yeah.
And the very first thing I thought to myself was, I don't know if this is right.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know enough about React Native to know if this is
Yep.
right. And I didn't know what to do at that point. I guess I had an idea for what to do, but like it was kind of like, this is interesting. If you don't know what correct is, you don't know. I guess come back to here. We can go full circle.
Yeah. We'll have an AI check it out.
You know what Kent Beck is mostly known for?
Tell me.
Test-driven development.
Yeah.
It's one of his big claims of fame. He was an early pioneer of test-driven development.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's mostly known for it, but he's probably mostly known for extreme programming.
Right.
But he's known for test-driven development, and I guess test-driven development is really key when you're having the AI write stuff for you, because it confirms that it's doing the right thing,
Yeah.
even if you don't know what the right thing is. I don't know how. That's what I was going to do test-driven development in a very manual way. I was going to do manual test. I was going to try and load the React Native app in my emulator and see if it worked. And then I guess I knew if it was going to work. Right. So essentially, testing QA is going to become more and more important.
And yes, I agree. And if the developers don't learn how to recognize good quality code, guess what recognizing good quality code is? It's pattern recognition.
It's true.
And so it's already the case that GitHub Copilot, when I open up a pull request on any of my repositories, there's a nice little GitHub little Copilot icon sitting on the pull request, and it's got a little smiling face, and it says, click here to have me code review this pull request.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I do that on all my pull requests on all of the projects I work on. And 9 times out of 10, it basically just describes exactly what I did and offers no feedback. 1 time
Mm-hmm.
out of 10, it will offer comments on, hey, this line of code, you're doing this. Consider doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
of the 1 time out of 10 that it gives me feedback, 1 time out of 10 of those, I go, oh, yeah, that's actually good feedback. I should fix that.
Yeah. So this is interesting. You might remember a number of episodes ago, we talked about this paper that had come across my desk from OpenAI, where they went and got a bunch of jobs
Mm-hmm.
off Upwork.
Yep.
And they had 2 agents or 2 bots or 2 AIs, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what to call them these days sometimes.
Right.
But they had 2 robots. I'm just going to call them robots. Robot 1 did the coding. Robot 2 did the evaluation. And the evaluation was more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Only about 20, if I remember, only about,
Oh, it's 30%, right?
I think it was 26% of the tasks were successful.
Yeah.
But evaluating if they were successful was about 41%, if I recall. So the code review part is more effective with the AI. And in fact, that matches my real world experience, in the sense of the first thing we've had the most success with at TaskRabbit is with using AI in our code reviews. We don't use GitHub Copilot. We use a different thing called CodeRabbit, no pun intended. It's
Yeah.
and our engineers really like it for exactly the reason
Totally.
you're talking about. It suggests tests that may have been missed, all sorts of stuff like that.
So, okay, so let's say, here's my question for you, Scott. The genie's out of the bottle. We both acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that we've got this, if we've got this concern for somewhere between 50 to 90% of all engineers working today, that they will be outperformed by the top 10% engineers that are augmented. How can we, as CTOs, as technology leaders, how do we prepare our enterprises and our teams for this future? And recognizing that, right, like of course, we have a duty to our employees, but we also have a duty to our shareholders and our customers and our other stakeholders. So I I'm just curious, are deep deep
Well,
accountability and deep thoughts on deep troubling events coming?
yeah, I think we've touched on one or two of the things, which is continuing to encourage, coach, train people with these things. Like that's like a duty to our teams, like to help them be the best they can be. Um, you talked earlier about good ideas. Um, to some degree, this gets into the product management space, right? Which is if your enterprise can generate more good idea, more ideas and more better ideas, and understand what the better ones are, then you're going to still have a demand for more engineers, for engineers in general. Um, be another piece. Um, I think probably something with fits with this. I'm just thinking of this notion right now, but as I thought of that notion, probably getting an organization to where it can experiment really rapidly. If all of a sudden I can produce code really quickly and I can and I don't know if a lot of these ideas I don't know if they're going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
So how can I test how can I get build how can I test these things really quickly? Not test like QA, but like experiment with customers, get them in front of customers.
Hmm.
Um, pretty good. Maybe there's actually a story in here which is we talked about test automation and test driven development. There might be a story in here which is um, if the demand for if an implication of AI is that the demand for QA is going to go up. There's kind of two stories there. One is, well, there's some job preservation if you can be good at that, and not as a traditional sort of point and click manual tester, but building that automation. But there's another story in there which is like, well, on the whole, as an industry, we can make better products now, better, higher quality products. Um, but I do want to come back and just not leave this point that point of evaluating and testing ideas, generating, evaluating, and testing ideas, which is a collaboration between the product management function and the engineering function, is maybe going to become a lot more valuable. Um, it'll be interesting to see from the economic perspective. Will companies try to cut costs, or will they realize that they can get more for their money, and will they try to do more? And really, I think that's a function of, right, is there more demand out there, right? That's what we talked about. Are you demand constrained?
Right. Well, this is why it's a tricky feedback loop, right? Because if we start to see a contraction in white collar jobs across the board because there's efficiency gains that come out of it, then that starts to also
Mm-hmm.
impact, you know, because we're a largely consumer driven economy. So
Yeah,
if our highest earners are, losing their jobs, then that it doesn't matter if there's better ideas. If the general consumer market is contracting, then enterprises are going to be forced to cut
that's
costs.
very scary. And this what we're talking about with engineers has been happening in the creative space for, I don't know, 10 to 15 years. You know, ad agencies can generate creative with way less people. Look, it's all about these phones, right?
Yep.
You used to need it went from you used to need a whole crew to make a TV commercial, but now you're just making a video for a little screen on social media on
Yeah.
TikTok, and you can do it with one of these guys. And now AIs can do it. That they've been experiencing this contraction for 15 years, and you know,
Yep.
are got challenges by it, of course. So now this part's all super scary. You can, if you want to, I don't want to go too far into politics, but like you can see how this leads to universal basic income. I don't know if this country would ever do universal basic income, but you can see how like that becomes a necessity
Well, that's one of
to
the
have.
reasons that, the you know Sam Altman is like as at backing UBI as aggressively as he is OpenAI. You know, he believes it.
Is that right? I didn't know he
Yeah,
was behind that.
yeah, he's got like World Coin or something like that. That's like a basically UBI.
So I have a hypothesis or a theory to run by UBI, and tell me what you think. People say, "Oh, UBI, that's bad." Everyone's just going to sit around all day and do nothing. But I sort of believe like the human spirit actually needs to do something. Not every human spirit, but 98% of the human spirits out there need to do something for meaning in their life.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes that is productive work, and sometimes it's, being a clergy minister type person, and sometimes it's working in health, whatever. Those things, people need to do
Being a
things for their
poet.
souls. Yeah. And sometimes those things make people need to do things for their souls.
Yep.
And so I've been thinking recently, like, maybe the moral hazard of UBI, which is people will just sit around and drink Diet Cokes all day, isn't a real moral hazard, because people will just have to do something. I mean, there will be maybe a greater percentage of people who don't do anything, but most people will just feel like, I can't sit around all day. I just need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard to have this conversation without getting into politics and philosophy and morality, but I generally reject the notion of moral hazard. I think that's that, I, that's like I fundamentally believe that's a story that's told by those in power to keep other people out of power. So,
Interesting. Well, this
um,
kind of connects back to, maybe this is a great spot to end. It kind of connects back to our John Helm episode when he said, can you have general intelligence without emotion?
yeah,
And these conversations always lead to some of these ethical questions,
yeah,
societal ethical questions.
yeah.
Well, should we end it there for today?
Let's end it on you got to come down to emotion.
Yeah. Pop quiz.
Yes.
Of the top 10 articles on Hacker News today, how many are about AI?
Uh, 7.
I haven't clicked into the articles. I'm only just reading the headlines, but I believe it is only one.
Oh, well, there you go. That's why I don't spend
Surprising,
any
right?
time on. I don't. I already said I don't read Hacker News.
I don't typically read it either, but I just pulled it up when you mentioned it. All right.
This
Raz,
was fun,
nice catching
Scott.
up.
Good talking to you.
Always.
All right, have a
See
good
you
one.
next week.
Cheers.
This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon. Or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.